The morning air at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya is usually filled with the familiar high-pitched scream of MotoGP machinery. But today something is different. A new sound is vibrating through the concrete of the pit wall, a deeper, more guttural, more menacing growl that doesn't belong here. It's a sound that marks the end of a 20-year dynasty and the birth of a desperate gamble. Inside the Yamaha garage, the atmosphere isn't just serious, it's suffocating. Engineers from Iwata are huddled over monitors, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of telemetry data, watching a single dot move across the track map. That dot represents Toprak Razgatlioglu, and the machine he's wrestling is the most secretive project in the paddock, the Yamaha V4 prototype. For decades, Yamaha stood alone, the last protector of the inline-4 engine philosophy. But as the European manufacturers Ducati, KTM, and Aprilia began to turn the sport into a high-speed arms race, Yamaha's identity became its shackles. They were being bullied on the straights and humiliated in the corners. Now they've finally snapped. They've built a monster to fight monsters. But as the bike screams past the grandstands at over 350 kilometers per hour, one question hangs over the paddock like a storm cloud. Is it already too late? No one inside the garage expected what would unfold next, and it would change everything for him, his team, and the entire 2026 season. But behind that calm expression Toprak wears in the hospitality suite, pressure was building fast. To understand why Yamaha is taking this staggering risk, you have to understand the trauma of the last 2 seasons. Yamaha wasn't just losing, they were fading into irrelevance. The inline-4 engine, once the gold standard for corner speed and smoothness, had hit a developmental ceiling. In the modern era of ride-height devices and aggressive aerodynamics, smooth doesn't win races anymore. Raw, brutal power does. The data from the early rounds of 2026 told a heartbreaking story. Yamaha riders were losing nearly 10 kilometers per hour on every major straight. They were forced to cook their tires just to stay in the slipstream of the Ducatis. By the middle of every race, the rear traction would simply collapse, leaving the riders defenseless. The Japanese giant was being mocked. Paddock whispers suggested that the once dominant manufacturer had become a rolling roadblock. This wasn't just a technical slump, it was a crisis of soul. Yamaha realized they could no longer rely on their old strategies. They had to kill their darling, the inline-4, to survive. But what the paddock discovered next shocked everyone. Inside the garage, whispers began spreading about the man in the saddle. Why did Yamaha choose Toprak Razgatlioglu to lead this revolution? He isn't a traditional Yamaha rider. He doesn't flow through corners like a ghost, he attacks them like a predator. Known in the world superbike paddock as Stoprak for his gravity-defying late braking, he was the only rider aggressive enough to tell the engineers the brutal truth. Toprak's feedback during these sessions has been described as vividly violent. He doesn't just feel the bike, he senses every tremor in the front end during hard braking. The engineers realized that the V4 engine concept, which is naturally more compact and allows for a more aggressive weight distribution, matched Toprak's DNA perfectly. Today in Catalonia, the focus shifted from pure speed to mechanical soul. Toprak was seen entering and exiting the pits multiple times, his brow furrowed, engaging in heated discussions with the crew chiefs. He wasn't just testing a motorcycle, he was teaching a Japanese company how to fight dirty again. Yet the real turning point happened away from the cameras. And from that moment, nothing would ever be the same. The V4 project isn't just about the engine configuration, it's a total reimagining of how a Yamaha moves through space. During the midday session, eagle-eyed observers noticed a different silhouette on Toprak's bike. Yamaha had abandoned their conservative aero fairings for something far more radical. Massive ground effect side pods and a redesigned lower wing were being tested to solve the one thing the inline-4 couldn't: stability during brutal acceleration. Technical insiders claimed that the new carbon fiber swingarm was designed specifically to handle the torque spikes of the V4. The bike looked stiffer, more reactive, and significantly more planted when exiting the final corner onto the main straight. But this technical evolution came with a high price. The electronics had to be rewritten from scratch. The telemetry showed that the bike was fighting itself, the power was there, but the brain of the machine was struggling to keep the front wheel on the ground. Some mechanics claimed something felt off during the time attack simulations. However, the twist that followed would change the championship narrative entirely. Yet this was only the beginning of a far bigger storm. While Yamaha worked behind closed doors, the rest of the paddock was watching. Mechanics from Ducati and KTM were spotted lingering near the Yamaha hospitality, stopwatches in hand, trying to catch a glimpse of the sector times. The air in Barcelona was thick with paranoia. In MotoGP, if you aren't moving forward, you're a target. Reports from the pit lane suggested that Toprak Sector 3 times, the technical winding part of the track, were surprisingly competitive. But it was Sector 4, the high-speed blast to the finish line, where the jaws dropped. The V4 sounded like a jet engine, and for the first time in years, a Yamaha wasn't being out-dragged by the privateer Ducatis. Some insiders claimed that Ducati management was already starting to express concern. They hadn't expected Yamaha to make this much progress in such a short window. The Japanese comeback was no longer a joke, it was a threat. But what happened after that left even his closest team members stunned. But behind the speed, a familiar ghost was still haunting the garage. Modern MotoGP isn't just about who is fastest, it's about who can stay fast for 24 laps. During a long-run simulation in the afternoon heat, the tension reached a breaking point. Toprak completed 15 laps with blistering pace, but as the sun hit its peak, the telemetry began to flicker with red warnings. The heat stability of the new V4 engine was being pushed to its absolute limit. The tighter packaging of the V4 makes cooling a nightmare, and some reports suggested the engine was running dangerously hot. If the engine overheats, the power drops. If the power drops, the tires spin. And if the tires spin, the race is over. Toprak returned to the pits, gesturing wildly at the rear of the bike. The dream of a perfect debut was crashing against the reality of thermodynamics. Yamaha was starting to take big risks, but were they taking them too fast? However, the pressure wasn't just mechanical, it was human. Toprak Razgatlioglu isn't just a rider, he's a symbol of hope for a nation and a brand. Every mistake he makes on track is magnified by 1,000 headlines. In the garage, the Japanese engineers looked physically exhausted. They had been working non-stop since the Sepang tests, fueled by caffeine and the fear of failure. For Toprak, this project represents the ultimate test of his career. He arrived as the outsider, the man who was supposed to change the direction of Yamaha's development. If this V4 fails, it isn't just a bike that fails, it's his legacy. The weight of an entire manufacturer is resting on his leathers. He was seen sitting in the back of the garage, eyes closed, visualizing the laps, trying to find a way to communicate with a machine that was still learning how to speak his language. But what the Paddock discovered next shocked everyone. As the sun began to set over the Catalan hills, Toprak went out for one final Superpole simulation. This was the moment of truth. No more data collection, no more safe maps, just raw, unadulterated speed. The sound of the V4 echoing off the empty grandstands was staggering. It wasn't just fast, it looked right. The bike was carving through the apexes with a precision that hinted the old Yamaha DNA was still there, just hidden under a new, more muscular skin. When he crossed the line, the timing screens flashed a number that sent a shockwave through the pit lane. While official times weren't released to the public, the body language in the Pramac garage said everything. There were no cheers, only a deep collective exhale. They had found something, they had found the thrust they had been missing for half a decade. Yamaha was no longer playing it safe. They were finally taking the fight to the Europeans on their own terms, yet this was only the beginning of a far bigger storm. The test in Barcelona ended with more questions than answers, but one thing is now undeniable. The era of the soft Yamaha is dead. The V4 project is a declaration of war, but the road to the top is still guarded by the red wall of Borgo Panigale. Ducati remains the benchmark and KTM is breathing down everyone's neck. Yamaha has the heart, now they need the reliability. For Toprak Razgatlioglu, the mission has only just begun. He has proven that the V4 has the soul of a winner, but can he sustain that intensity over a full season? As the bikes are packed into crates for the next round, the atmosphere in the paddock remains electric. Rival teams are no longer looking at the Yamaha garage with pity, they are looking with suspicion. The balance of power in MotoGP is shifting, and the Stoprak revolution might be the catalyst that burns the old order down. But as the lights go out in Catalonia, the real question remains. When the grid forms for the next Grand Prix, will the V4 be a savior or just another expensive ghost in the machine? The twist that follows in the next few weeks will change the championship narrative entirely.